Welcome back to Lost for Words with Lori. It is Tuesday. It is September 20th. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Boy, man, busy. Work is crazy busy. I got a lot going on in my first world, and that keeps me pretty focused and centered for the most part. Got a lot of great projects coming up that are in the works, and I kind of expressed that in my last little video on my little drive home. So I'm really looking forward to getting back on that track and focusing on some of the projects and the subject matter that I've really wanted to unwrap and cover. So that being said, next Monday we're doing a really cool panel discussion on people who have gifts and abilities, and whether it's a curse or a blessing kind of deal. And we're going to unwrap a whole bunch of things that go with that. So I'm very excited about it because it's going to lead to some really cool discussions with some really interesting and amazing people. And you know me, I love the words, right? Even when I'm a loss for words. Ha ha ha. But anyway, today, upon working on these projects and having discussions with people, and whenever, if you know me really well, you know that when we talk, or if I talk to you about subjects that aren't just frivolous or music or whatever, I take notes while I have conversations. Things come to mind. That's part of me being neurodivergent and just having my brain work overtime all the time. But I write notes, and I take lots of them about things that pop into my head. And I was having a discussion with a friend of mine the other night, and we were talking about boundaries and things that are painful. And so I wanted to kind of go over quickly, maybe quickly, but the painful truth about boundaries, at least as it relates to me in my first world, and maybe can help some of you go, oh yeah, I get this, I have these same issues. But we were talking about boundaries in general because you guys know that I preach to the choir about boundaries and expectations, and being transparent and communicating effectively. And to me, that's the life lesson that I'm learning, and have learned over the last couple of years about how important it is to establish and keep those in place, because without them there's no communication. And it seems like the more conversations I have with people about boundaries, and them getting frustrated with trying to establish them and practice them and make some progress within that, is that, they get a lot of backlash and people come back at them. And, what I have to say about that is that the people who scream the loudest about your boundaries are the ones who needed them there in the first place. I mean, establishing some solid boundaries with the people around you comes with a lot of sadness and regret. And that's just the painful truth of that. We started talking about my past and about the situation of me leaving the state that I lived in and moving to a new place. And you talk about not wanting to feel guilty when you have good things going on in your life and other people get jealous or angry and come at you because they're feeling some sort of way about your success and their growth opportunities. And for me, it was, people talking about their parents or about their mothers or fathers or being close to them. And, establishing a no contact boundary with toxic family for me has been very painful. I miss that. I miss having a mom to talk to or support or, comfort me when I'm having issues. And you feel kind of robbed from that. But at the same time, recognizing those red flags that were going on in my first world with my family, the toxic behaviors and the dynamic of that relationship. Once I was able to recognize them and eliminate them, I started moving in a more positive, aspect of my life. Because I decided that I was no longer going to be a doormat for other people's issues or for our family toxicity. I was kind of the punching bag. Whatever was going on, my family would come to me with issues, but then they would score keep, and be like, well, I did all these things for you, so now you need to comply. And part of establishing a solid boundary in my world was saying that that's no longer acceptable. I don't have to allow this. And of course, as a result of that, and changing, my situation, not without accountability, because I made mistakes in that. I was thrown under the bus and bullied and vilified. And my family chose to change the narrative to make themselves look like angels, like they didn't do anything wrong, or that there was no reason for me to take the path that I did. And that was their choice. I could no longer stick around and enable that behavior to continue because it was self-destructive for me, and it was toxic for my family, to keep on having us all kind of put into these roles, where expectations were in place, that were unhealthy. And once I was able to establish those boundaries, people got really uncomfortable having to adhere to them, because they were used to me being the punching bag, me being the scapegoat, me being the one who was the bad guy in their story. Because when you establish boundaries with people and they don't want to be accountable for their part, they are going to turn around and get defensive and treat you a certain way, in order to get you to lower those boundaries and get the things, whatever their agenda is, back to where it was once before, because, obviously that worked for them. But when it doesn't work for you anymore, and you establish those solid borders and those solid walls and say, I'm not doing this, people get upset, they get angry, and then you either have a discussion and work that out, or you don't. And in the case of that situation with my toxic family, it ended up having to be no contact, because every time I had contact, it was always blaming me for stuff that really wasn't my ownership, or being angry about things that should have been resolved or let go of years prior, because I can't go back and change it. I own my accountability for my part, and I kept banging my head against a wall going, what do you want from me? I already said I'm sorry. I'm no longer there to participate in the behavior. But, nobody wanted to forgive. And we've talked a lot about forgiveness lately, because people want to move on and forgive other people who've, kind of gone against them, or forgive themselves, or try to make things right. And, sometimes people will say, okay, well, I'll forgive you, but here's my expectations of what that means. And if that kind of expectation comes with a string attached, I don't want any part of it. I mean, part of learning to establish new boundaries and new behaviors that are not self-destructive, and that are instrumental into progressing into the, being the best version of myself, means that I have to stand up for myself and not go backwards, and express to people that you can't go back and change what's been done. You can't undo it. And there's going to be a time period that it takes to resolve those feelings, those emotions, and those conflicts. But if people are going to stay in the past and not move forward, that's their choice. And my boundary says that, we don't do that, and we don't do those anymore. I'm allowed to change my mind about the toxicity in my world that doesn't serve me anymore. And once I established that boundary with those people, they were like, oh, well, we're going to hold this, and this against you. I can't change how they feel about that. And it's unfortunate that people that were once so important to me, my family being, my rock, my center, are not willing to have open conversations, and would rather continue to play victim and blame me for things that I'm not even there for. And it's unfortunate, because as I was speaking with my friend the other day, we all lost. I mean, I got robbed of having a family that would do celebrations for, holidays and birthdays, and talk to, when I was feeling lonely or I wanted my family. And that's the unfortunate sadness that comes with me establishing the boundaries that I needed to with toxic family members. And, you know, what can I do? I can't change anything. I have to realize that I'm only in control of myself and my life. And at the end of the day, I have to do what's best for me, and what serves me, to the highest ability, not what other people choose or wish, me over them, because I can't have that kind of gatekeeping and negativity in my world, just because they have a different belief system about the way things should be done. But you have to hold those boundaries firm with the people around you, because at the end of the day, your actions and what you do going forward speaks a lot louder than your words. And I know I talk a lot, and I know people get sick of hearing it. But in my first world, talking about what steps need to be taken to repair relationships, or to repair friendships, or to repair family dynamics, is that kind of communication is priceless. And you can either have that, or you can grieve in my situation for what's lost. Because do I believe that I'm going to ever be forgiven? I don't know. I mean, that's not on me, it's on them. Do I own my mistakes? Absolutely. And I am accountable for the things that I may have done wrong. I'm human. It doesn't justify that I've hurt people with my actions. But if you're not willing to have that conversation about what happened, and how we can resolve it, then I guess you get to be bitter and angry for the rest of your life. I choose to not do that. I chose to extend the olive branch in my family's direction many a times, and was basically greeted with silence. But then, holidays or birthdays would roll around, and I get, a lot of passive aggressive text messages saying, well, how come you didn't, message so-and-so, or call them on their birthday? And my response was, I've extended the olive branch enough, and I'm not getting any reciprocation. So am I supposed to continue and beat myself up and feel angry and have that expectation of they aren't going to respond? How long am I supposed to do that? And keep hurting myself, instead of just moving forward and basically putting the ball in their court. If they're ready to get over themselves and talk and have those conversations, so be it. But after 9 months of no contact, I'm doing fine. I still have to deal with the patient, or with the emotions, and be patient with that, as far as feeling, dropped or let go for no reason. But that's their choice. And as much as that hurts me, I'm doing okay. I'm still progressing. I'm still moving forward without them. And it's unfortunate and it's sad, but what do you do? I can't control them. I'm not going to change their mind. And while I can accept that they have feelings and issues and be empathetic to that, if they don't want to have open dialogue or communication, and at least look at the perspective that they may have made mistakes and stop blaming me for all of that, then I'm much better off with the boundary that I'm just going to have no contact. And the argument that it's the only family you have, or you only have one mom, brother, dad, sister, whatever, does not mean that I have to compromise my values, my life, my progress on my journey, out of guilt for that. They only have one of me as well, and they're choosing to treat me poorly. What does that say about them? So again, it's not an easy situation to tell people, this is what's going on with me. I'm as transparent as a pane of glass. These are the boundaries I have, and the expectations of how you are going to be allowed to treat me or be present in my first world. And if you can't adhere to those, I hate to tell you this, but here's the fucking door, I don't have to be a doormat for anyone. I don't need to live with regret or sadness over the scorekeeping and the bad behavior. to make other people around me comfortable. And I'm allowed to stand up for myself and say no more. Here's what I'm about, and open up communication dialogues with people who wish to continue on a much more happy path or positive journey in their life, and basically just shoot people down who only want to wallow in their sadness, their misery, and their agony over decisions that they've made, or their choice to not, even have a conversation in the first place. So, why having boundaries and expectations and being transparent in my first world is working very well for me. And I'm creating a much better life for myself through this journey, because life ain't certain, right? It doesn't come without pain. It doesn't come without regret. It doesn't come without a lot of wishing or hopes or tears, missing the things that you could have had or the things that you've lost. And there are days where I'm very sad about that. But I'm also smart enough to realize that if I were to compromise my own belief system about what's best for me, to allow people who have trampled over boundaries with me in the past, and let them back in to do it again, that just makes me a bad judge of character, It makes me a glutton for punishment. And it basically makes me a victim, and I'm not any of those things. I'm choosing me over we in that situation with my family. And they have two choices. They can either own up their stuff and come along for the ride, or it's going to continue to just be a no contact situation where I don't get the family that I wanted. So I created my own. I created a family for myself with people who are as loving and caring and forgiving and able to discuss and communicate openly, where I didn't have that before. And they don't, I've taught them how to treat me. I've given them all of the things that I need in my first world, to be a good friend, a good human, a good parent, a good employee. And I'm accountable for my behavior, for my things, for my mistakes. But I'm not going to take on anybody else's, and I'm not going to fight other people's fights, and I'm not going to make it so dramatic that it causes so much upheaval and chaos in my first world, because that's not what I'm about either. And unfortunately, in social media world, it's harder to establish boundaries with people and hold them to it, because there are so many people who are hiding behind a keyboard and are bullying people and treating people poorly because they're miserable. And that happens not just in social media, but in your first world as well. But I take the same active role in my life in my social media world as I do in my first world. And that is, if it doesn't serve me, it's probably going to not be a good idea to entertain it. And proof's in the pudding, the things and the progress and all of those milestones that you make when you're healing are very apparent in all of the things that go on in my first world. And so if the model works for me, I'm going to continue it. And I'm going to encourage other people to do it as well, because those who do recognize the positive movement in their lives and recognize the positive outcomes of recognizing red flags and telling people I won't allow this, and communicating effectively about what is and isn't allowed, and holding people accountable for their own behavior, as well as themselves, because we are all accountable for our own behaviors, and recognizing that there are consequences and outcomes for every choice that we make, good, bad, or indifferent. If I'm faced with a choice of how to establish or up a boundary with somebody, I do have to think about the repercussions of that or the consequences of that, because most people don't like boundaries. They just want to do their thing and stomp on you and step over you. And if you're transparent about what you need, what your needs are, and what you expect from people and how you're treated, then when they come back and try and step on them, you can say, hey, not okay. You're not allowed to do that. And they have two choices. They can either accept that and make it right, or they can bounce. And you'll find that when you establish strong enough boundaries, the trash takes itself out. And then you can just keep moving forward with embracing the positivity and the good things that happen in your world, and just keep making progress. Baby steps, every step forward instead of 2 steps forward and 5 steps back. I can't change the past. I can't go back and redo anything that I may or may not have done, and I can't change anybody's opinion. And that's not my goal. That's not my prerogative in the first place. But that's my story. That's my thing about boundaries, and about them being painful. And I know a lot of you have that same frustration about establishing boundaries and being clear communicators and learning how to effectively talk to people and teach them how to teach you. But it's important. It's important to love who you are, be supportive of yourself in your own decisions, and to establish concrete, transparent boundaries and expectations with everyone around you. Therefore, it makes navigating those paths so much easier when people aren't second guessing what you mean by the things that you say. But let me know in the comments what you think. I hope everyone has a great rest of their week. I got lots going on. I hope to see y'all soon. Always remember, wash your fucking hands and be a good human. I love you guys. Bye.